Welcome to my extensive research of the 1972 crime film The Godfather. The Godfather was the first film that I chose due to its major role in the revival of the crime genre, as I'd previously researched the crime genre before I actually chose it, just so I had a small bit of knowledge so that I could actually put it into these videos. The Godfather reintroduced the crime genre with its gripping film noir style, and has influenced other directors for future films, and has also created some key conventions that even my film trailer will have to follow. The Godfather was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and had a budget of $6 million, which was a lot back then, but it's clear to say that it was a smart investment, as it has made over $134 million and continues to do so every single year. The film has been so popular and still is today, and with 3 films selling merchandise every single year, and as the film is still going in terms of merchandise as well. And also they're releasing it digitally, they're releasing it on Blu-ray, they're releasing it on everything, and even when there's more platforms that will come out to watch videos on, they'll even sell it to there, so it's no surprise that it'll probably be on streaming services like Netflix very soon. The Godfather was released on the 24th of March 1972. The plot. When the head of an infamous crime family decides he is too old and offers his position to the subalterns, a war starts between the famous crime families, and a series of unfortunate events occurs, and it ends with the favourable successor finally choosing to take over as the head of the crime family, and the first film sets up the next 2 films that take place after that. And it's fair to say that the first film was a major success, and then all the ones after that were successes as well. And I think that it's become sort of more of a franchise recently as well, because more people have been seeing all 3 films in one go, whereas most people would usually tend to watch the first one because most people were very opinionated when it comes to sequels. And I think that I had to choose the first one because the first one's so good, and using Marlon Brando as the Godfather, you get to see the most iconic figure in the film series, because if I had watched the third one or the second one for my research, I don't think it would have created the same conventions and also the same atmosphere for my final film trailer for me to reflect on, because I could really use the first film as inspiration because of the technology that was used then, in contrast to the technology that was used in the second and third one is very different. I think it's very important that I chose the oldest one possible so I can reflect it from Goodfellas and then also other films like Nightcrawler and Focus, because all the crime genres change because of different camera shots and other things like that. So I think that if I chose the first one, I could really show a different style, because obviously The Godfather didn't really use that many diverse camera shots, which I think is very important because it can be used to reflect on it and also evaluate when researching my crime films. The film was set in New York, which is a very popular setting for the crime genre, as a lot of films like Goodfellas are set in New York. I love how the setting is used, as it's clear to see how big the city is, but it almost seems small due to the Godfather and his influential power. The family is very loyal, and you can see how Don Vito is looked up to, as he's a nice guy even though he might come across that he is a very evil villain. The film is great to research, as I can reflect on how the film genre has changed over the 50 years up until now. And it is great to analyse, and even though you don't see any CGI or fancy camera shots, it makes it even better because most crime films add realism into their films, and it has done it in its own way this time, because it doesn't look fake and unrealistic because the camera shots are very basic, and also the cameras in that day weren't quality, so you don't get the 1080p quality obviously, so you get to see a different time period throughout the quality of the pixels on your screen as well, which is not very important, but it can also add effect to it, because watching an old movie you can tell it's an old movie. If you watch, say, Focus in 1080p, you can obviously tell that it's from this day and age, whereas back then it's set in 1945, but because it was made in 1970, the filming equipment wasn't exactly the best, which makes it very good because obviously I can use better camera equipment than they used back then, but I can still try and make my film look that little bit older if I choose to do so. The characters are as follows: Marlon Brando as Don Vito Corleone, Al Pacino as Michael Corleone, James Caan as Sonny Corleone, Richard S. Castellano as Clemenza, Robert Duvall as Tom Hagen, Sterling Hayden as Captain McCluskey, John Marley as Jack Waltz, Richard Conte as Barzini, Al Lettieri as Solozzo, Diane Keaton as Kay Adams, Abe Vigoda as Tessio, Talia Shire as Connie, Gianni Russo as Carlo, John Cazale as Fredo, and Ruby Bond as Cuneo. The Godfather is a fantastic film, and it's clear to see how it's influenced other films of that genre. I love how it's changed the crime genre, and after this point, other films like Goodfellas, Pulp Fiction, and Nightcrawler have all introduced their own styles and their own individual take on the crime genre, and I'll continue to explore these different approaches to the crime genre in future videos and other blog updates. And I think that it has really changed the way that we watch crime films as well, because it's raised the bar. Because you would, back before The Godfather was created, most people would tend to watch action films, but then it's really sort of changed because most people want to watch crime films now, because the bar has been set so high that other films that are successes have obviously been more popular than The Godfather because of their different nature towards the crime genre. Because obviously Nightcrawler was successful, not as successful as The Godfather, but then you get a film like Focus, which completely changes the way the crime is viewed as also a sort of subtle nature to their business, and it completely changed the way that crime is perceived, because most people would perceive crime as obviously as a crime, and most people would see them as the villains. But in more recent films, you see Nicky and Jess in Focus as the heroes. So I think The Godfather has really set the tone for the crime genre.
You look terrible. I want you to eat. I want you to rest well, and a month from now, this Hollywood big shot's gonna give you what you want.
Too late. They start shooting in a week.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I've been Lewis Sillery, and I hope you've enjoyed my extensive research into The Godfather. Thank you.